All right, welcome back, everybody. It's rough draft. I'm gonna do that all again. I'm gonna cut this all out. It was bad. It was a bad start. Came out of the blocks weird. Didn't like it. We're just gonna reset. Get that false start out of the way. All right.
I took a Lisa on your heart. I took a Lisa on your heart. Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart? Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart? Can I Lisa, Lisa Bart?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are still on our quest for dynasty domination. How are you doing over there today, Dan?
I'm doing great, man. I
Good.
can't believe how phenomenal things are going over
Oh,
here.
damn. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. We are going to crack into it, get into a little bit of wide receiver talk. We did some running backs and tight ends last week. Today, we're going to do some wide receivers and some quarterbacks. So without further ado, I'll let you kind of take it from there. What are we talking about today?
All right, man. So today we're talking about surprise wide receiver twos. And what I mean by that is we're basically just looking at sleepers forecasted projections as far as point totals for the upcoming year. And I'm looking at wide receivers outside the top 36 in projected points that I think or we think could end up being, top 24 wide receivers. And I did a little bit of history lesson just so we have some context for how plausible this is. And it was a little discouraging at first. Let me tell you what happened last year. Um, Honestly, there were only three. There were only three guys projected outside the top 36 that ended up in the top 24. And it was Garrett Wilson, 22, DJ Moore, 23,
Mm,
and Zay Jones, 24.
mm.
So you're like, holy smokes. Interesting that it's the last three wide receiver twos on the list, 23, 22, and 24 there. But all those guys were projected to be between 40 and 45.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're familiar with these guys. They had great years last year, and it was out of nowhere. Um, but I'm like, damn, they're just bringing up the tail end. Maybe 2021 has a little bit more information, and it was pretty interesting. 2021 had 25% of the top 24 had preseason projections outside the top 36. So that
Interesting.
gives it a little more optimism for this discussion. And in addition to that, there were some really major jumps made by Hunter Renfro from 78th up to 11th.
Mm.
Um, you had Amon-Ra St. Boom. We're calling him that. I'm going to make a thing. He went from 82 to 24 as a
Woof.
rookie. Yeah. And then, Christian Kirk's last year with the Cardinals, he went from 66th up to 23rd. So, yeah, Waddle, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Pittman ran out the rest of the guys
Mm.
that came up, but they were all in the 40s. So it was kind of like a situation like last year. But there were some real big leaps made, and so we'll see. We'll see if we're projecting any big leaps for 2023, man. Let's just get into it. Hit me with the guy.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna kind of knock out the one that a lot of people are talking about first. I kind of wanted to highlight him because I think it is worth mentioning. I'm gonna start with Elijah Moore. Just got traded to the Browns. He's still projected really weirdly to me. Projected 59th on
Hmm.
sleepers. That puts him at 9 points per game, 153 for the whole season. Um, I just think he's gonna do better than that. Like I know I'm the guy. I'm here bringing him up. Everybody else is talking about Elijah Moore too. We've been doing it since 2021, weeks 7 to 13. I mean, that's what we're all basing this around. We saw what Moore could do in the NFL given the opportunity. Through weeks 7 to 13 in 2021, Elijah Moore scored 124 points. That's an average of 17.7 a week, and included 3 weeks of 20 or more points and 2 games where he had 10 or more targets. So we're talking like elite level production. Then he got hurt, then had some off the field stuff, and then it's the Jets. So just kind of hard to keep any kind of traction there. Then they get Garrett Wilson. And then obviously we know he asked for a trade. They tell him no, but then don't play him and then trade him anyway. Just a weird situation going on. So it kind of fell off the rails, but we've seen him do it. We have seen him be explosive in the NFL. Now we're seeing him on a new team with a brand new quarterback, arguably the best quarterback that he's played with in the NFL. Probably not arguably. It probably just is, depending on where Deshaun Watson goes from here. So trying to get a look at like where Moore could end up finishing was a bit tricky, actually, when you look at Deshaun Watson led teams and like their wide receiver production. So you start in 2018. That's Watson's first year as a starter. Hopkins has 163 targets. Second was Will Fuller with only 45 targets. But that year kind of needs an asterisk next to it, because if you look at the Houston Texans roster that year, DeAndre Hopkins was the only wide receiver that played a full 16 games. Everybody else played like 7, 8, 10 at most games. Like everybody was just hurt. So it was kind of hard for any wide receiver to get any sort of real traction. Then we go to 2019. Hopkins has 150. Fuller was second on the team with 71 targets. That's on 11 games, because obviously Fuller's could never play a full 17-game season. Then we go to 2020. That's Watson's first year without DeAndre Hopkins. Brandon Cooks gets 119 targets. Fuller follows with 75, also over 11 games, because Will Fuller can't finish a full season. So reliably, we can see that with Deshaun Watson, he has one guy who's going to dominate the target spectrum. Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks, probably Amari Cooper this year. It was last year. So we're going to just slot Amari Cooper into like the 120 to 150 type target role. But that means there's a guy who needs to be number 2 that's going to get around 70 targets. And again, that's with Will Fuller missing some games. If we spread out that target production over a full 17-game season, he's over 100 targets. So we can see that Watson does kind of have enough in him to have 2 guys at least get 100 targets. So there's a spot there. And now it's all about if Moore can fill that role. And obviously they drafted Cedric Tillman. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones there, and then Elijah Moore. So they're all 3 kind of fighting for that second spot. And I think Moore is the most likely to win. Like, he's already shown off in camp. The Browns want to get more explosive. They paid Deshaun Watson all this money not to just kind of meander down the field. They want to score points. They want to look great. They want to look like they made the right decision. Moore makes them more explosive. And not only that, they traded a 2nd-round pick to get Elijah Moore, and then immediately after that spent a 3rd-round pick on Cedric Tillman. And not just any 3rd-round pick, it was the 311. So an early 3rd on Cedric Tillman. So to me, the Browns just showed you what they think of DSP, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, DPJ, DSP, sorry, DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones. The Browns just showed you kind of what they think of him, in my opinion. So to me, it comes down to Moore and Tillman. And while I like Tillman as a player, I like Moore's like upside explosiveness to get more traction. I think at least this year, he's the number 2 in that offense with between 70 and 100 targets if he stays healthy, which puts him in prime position to destroy that 59th projection overall for him and make it potentially into the top 24.
Yeah, 59 is criminal for that one, man.
It didn't make any sense.
But no, I like everything you're saying. Thank you for reminding everyone about Will Fuller, dude. Talk about hopes and dreams. They never lasted.
It was rough because he was so fun when he was playing.
Yeah, it could be in the straw on that camel's back was pretty breakable. So damn. All right, I'm in it. I'm into that. I don't have to go back rehashing, but I'm happy to hear it. Cool. Well, I'm in that same range with my first guy here. I'm gonna go with number 55 on the projections, and that is the Chicago Bears, Darnell Mooney.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is a this is a weird one for me, for everybody, I think. Um, but I'm just gonna start at the beginning and see where we end up. So Mooney, right? He's with the Bears, and last year they were dead last in pass attempts, and it was pretty bad. They were 38 pass attempts behind the second to last team, the Falcons, with 377 attempts. And so that is horribly low. They
Mhm.
narrowly hit the 50% mark on their comparison to Tampa Bay as the top passing team. So that's a huge gap and
Mhm.
potential for them to make up. And yeah, 377 is horribly low. I'm looking at the 2021 numbers, and it was 542.
Mm.
So I'm thinking, hey, like they could get closer to that number, which is going to help with the passing game. It's going to help Darnell Mooney out. Just to keep the Falcons comparison going, like what they did, they went and got Bijan Robinson and
Mhm.
pretty much just said F the passing game. Like, we're just going to do whatever we want to do. The Bears went a different direction. They didn't really, they didn't bring back their running back that was running the show in Montgomery. In fact, they traded to get, a number one wide receiver in DJ Moore. So, if anything, it shows that they're going more heavily into the passing game. Obviously, Luke Getsy is probably not like a running game guy. He was a passing game coordinator, quarterbacks guy with the Packers. And you can't really make the comparison between Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers, right? But
Mhm.
you have to assume that a guy like that isn't going to be a run first, run always. It was cool a little bit with Chicago. It was like kind of fun, but it didn't do anything to help them out in the win column.
Mhm.
So I think they got to go. They got to go full pass. And the last time they were having healthy pass attempts in 2021, Darnell Mooney was the guy. He was rocking 140 targets that year, and that was 14th best in the league, tied with Mike Evans. So he was a legit wide receiver, and he blew up the fantasy world. So I'm pretty excited to see if he can get back to that. Last year, he had an injury shortened year, and of course, it meant lower volume. And then I'm telling you, with the pass attempts, it was definitely going to be lower on his 61 targets. It was 12 games, put him at a pace of about 100 targets a year.
Mm.
And for the year. And I think that might be what we're looking at this year, anyhow. But in that 2021 season, it was just him and Cole Kmet and like N'Keal Harry. It was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. So they were asking him to do way too much. They were asking him to do everything. And I think that it kind of wore down his potential. It kind of diluted kind of what he specializes in. And for me, I think that's the deep balls. I mean, he
Mhm.
had some amazing games in the 2021 year, including three of them where he had an average of 24 yards per catch or greater. And then those weren't like huge games. He had some 12, 16 target games that year, but those were like 5 target games where he just caught 4 balls for 100 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm looking for him to do now that DJ Moore is there taking the defense away. So this just opens him up to do what I think he really should specialize in. And going back to my love of Justin Fields in Ohio State, like he really especially had a really nice deep ball. And he was hitting guys way downfield. And we know it was Garrett Wilson and Chris
Mhm.
Olave and, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So it's a little bit different. But now I'm looking at this receiving core for Justin Fields. Whatever happens with Chase Claypool and DJ Moore is obviously going to do what he always does. But I think the whole thing just opens it up for Darnell Mooney to just do what he does best, to get the open looks that he wasn't going to get when he was getting double teamed as the team's number one wide receiver. And I think it's ready to go. He's on the last year of his rookie contract, so it's one of those prove it years, and guys
Mhm.
seem to really heat up in those kind of situations. So there's no like perfect metric. I did some digging, but I just think from what I saw, I watched pretty much all his pro highlights, and he's an animal, man. He's a
Mhm.
beast. And I think that he was just getting a little smothered, and then the game script wasn't going his way last year. I think everything's a lot more established. It's second year for all the coaches. And now you bring in DJ Moore, and I think you're really going to end up getting your money's worth out of Darnell Mooney, way higher than 55.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, the Bears just as a whole are going to be, in theory, vastly more improved. Just by rounding out that wide receiver room, like exactly what you're talking about, forcing Mooney into the role where he needs to do everything wasn't good for him. It wasn't good for Fields, being able to have somebody to go to. And they kind of just did what they could last season, and we saw how explosive Fields could be in that. And now they're kind of expanding from there. They built up the line this offseason. They are obviously bringing in DJ Moore, like you said, and giving him a lot more weapons and variety. And then, like, again, Luke Getsy's not going to sit around and want to run the ball all the time. And they didn't even bring the personnel in to do that. I mean, they brought
Right.
in Roshan Johnson, sure, and Khalil Herbert. But even Matt Eberflus was talking and is quoted as saying, like, pass protection is one of the most important things to being a running back. It goes pass protection, then running the ball. So that should indicate what they're trying to do. If not, like, put it predominantly in Justin Fields' hand on the ground. They're also looking to throw the ball more, and Roshan's going to be more effective there. But that's a different conversation between Roshan and Herbert. But just to your point, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more, and Mooney having less of a weight on his back is going to be really good for him. I'm with you.
Hell yeah, man.
So I'm gonna go a little deeper. This is as deep as I got, all the way down to 66th. And I don't usually go for the older guys, but I'm gonna go for an older guy here. I'm going with Robert Woods. This is not a guy
Nice.
that I talk about all the time. He's freshly on the Texans, 31 years old. But this is ridiculous to me. They're projecting him 139 points for 66. That's an average of 8 per game for Robert Woods. Like, okay, I get it. He was hurt last season and he was on a terrible Tennessee team, so he did really bad. But in 2021, before he got hurt, he was still averaging 15 a week with 8 targets a game. And then his 3 previous seasons with the Rams, he was absolutely electric, finishing inside the top 15 in PPR leagues from 2018 to 2020. Obviously that's old news. It's an injury. He's in his 30s now. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because he's back in an offense that suits, or that should suit, that type of skill set again. The new Texans offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, is coming from San Francisco, that Shanahan McVay style offense. So now Woods is going to be back in there. And then you look, they have a young quarterback who's known for delivering accurate passes in CJ Stroud. Who do you think they're going to want to rely on early and often, other than vets that know how to catch the ball in the NFL, to build up this rookie's confidence in delivering these guys the ball? Those two vets, Robert Woods and Dalton Schultz. Those two guys, I think, are going to get lots of work really early on for the Texans. Now, it might trickle for you as they try to work in Nico Collins and John Mechie and all these other guys that they brought in. But and so maybe like towards championship time, you might have to look at these guys as not as sure candidates. But I think Robert Woods maybe doesn't have the potential. Like, this is a fringe guy to get into the top 24 if we're talking about it now. But he's the most experienced guy on his roster. He's going to be the number 1 receiver, and with a rookie quarterback that needs a lot of help. So, like, I think he has a chance to do it, and he's really cheap, and that's kind of why I'm bringing him up. I don't think he's going to win your league or anything for you, obviously, but like, I think he's just going to crush this 8 points per week projection. I mean, he could end up getting 8 targets a week from CJ Stroud, much less points. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. He's a stopgap option for sure, but he's a great guy to have like on your bench right now. There's just, I mean, I know we're all hyped about the young Texans guys, but like they're gonna need some vet presence to get this offense moving, or it's gonna crumble. And Woods is the guy they brought in to do that. That they went out and got him for a specific reason. He's familiar with the system, and he's like a consistent presence that they can use. I think there's a chance. It's a not a strong chance, but I think there's a chance that he surprises a lot of people this season. But everybody said that last year too. So
Yeah, yeah, we did say that last year, didn't we? Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, damn, dude. I like exactly what you're saying. I think that people put on Stroud a little bit and it's going to go his way. I think the Nico Collins, as much as we, we're keeping that flame lit, it might have come and gone.
yeah.
Obviously, this is Mechie's first year as a pro. Tank Dell, same stuff. Like,
Yep.
it's just, it's too easy to keep Robert Woods on the field 24/7. So I think you're onto something, man.
Yeah. And he should be one more year removed from that injury. And obviously, he's on the wrong side of the age scale when we're talking about recovering from injuries. But another year off in an offense that I would argue I'd be more excited to watch the Texans offense this season than the Titans offense last season. Obviously, that's easy to say with hindsight
100%.
and a new quarterback, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're going to find many people to argue with you on that. So
Sorry, everyone, for the ruckus on the mic. I just knocked it into shit.
dude, I didn't know if that was me or you. So I'm glad
That
it
was
was
me.
you. Professionalism over here.
Gotcha.
No, I'm just joking. So yeah, he's a 3-time top 15 wide receiver. So it wouldn't be that big of a stretch. Only 2 years removed from his last visit in that big circle of greatness. So I'm gonna do what you just did. I'm gonna talk about an old guy who's only 2 years removed from his last appearance in the top 24. Yes, he's older than Robert Woods. He is Marvin Jones Jr., dude.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'm getting a little deep with you on this one. He's coming in at 78 in the projected, and he's not rostered. Just FYI,
And
if
for
you're
the belt.
yeah. So that's pretty cool. 33 years old, and he still got it, man. Like I'm saying, he was recently the wide receiver 18 in 2020, and he went with Darrell Bevell, when he went over to the Jags. So he spent 2 years over there. His past 2 years, he's been used pretty heavily. He had the 120 target season for the Trevor Lawrence rookie year. That was a little rough. We all remember Urban Meyer and just how it didn't really go that smoothly. And then you get into 2022, and there's so much scenery change that he takes a huge backseat to new arrivals that come in with the new staff. So you got Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Zay Jones are in there, getting nearly triple digits. Evan Ingram had 98, but they're pretty much all over 100 targets. And as the fourth guy on the team, he still manages to get 81 targets. And he looked good, man. He really looked crisp. He was doing the things that he always has been doing. It's just really like plucking the ball out of the air and just hitting first downs. Just kind of his, I don't know, like a Deontay Johnson type possession wide receiver, just moving the sticks. And for all those reasons, man, I thought he was a pretty spry spring bird. Just looking at it, I think he's still got everything he needs to compete. So he's going over to the Lions, which is, back to the Lions
stomping grounds.
Yeah. So none of his old friends are really there. There's no Matthew Stafford or any of the coaching staff that was on that iteration of the team. So it's kind of like a new spot, but a familiar spot for him. But the chemistry isn't there. So he really will be starting kind of from scratch with this team. But he's shown that he can keep it going. He's had over 100 targets in like let's see, 5 of the last 6 seasons, and he performed really well. He's missed a little bit of time, but he's 33 years old. I think he comes onto this Detroit team that's going to need just everything they can get from a vet like him, right? So we all know Amon Ra's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Amon Ra is probably going to be working out of the slot. So you're going to need an outside guy that can hold it down. You got Marvin Jones, naturally, my choice for the guy to just take all the work that he could possibly handle up until week 7 when Jameson Williams comes back to town, right? So he's got 6 weeks to establish rapport with Jared Goff and just, be that guy for him because he's competing with the same old dudes that we talk about year in and year out. We got Josh Reynolds, we got Khalif Raymond, TJ Hawkinson's no longer on this team. So the opportunities are just pretty much endless for them. And we've talked about the Lions enough to where I think it's pretty common knowledge to us that the defense is the defense. They didn't go too hard on establishing it this offseason. They're happy to go with the high scoring offensive attack that they put up last year. It was exciting. It was fun. It was successful. And in order to do that, they're going to need a guy like Marvin Jones to be holding down the outside. It really doesn't get too deep. Like, he hasn't dropped off in his play style or his production at all throughout his career. Just because he's 33 means it's coming to an end soon. But I think that he has the opportunity to establish himself with the Lions and carry himself way above the 78 number. And I think he can get in the top 24, man. Call me crazy, but the touchdown numbers I think will be there for him. Just whatever. I can't defend this one. I got a feeling though.
No, I mean, I can see it. It's definitely a fringe one as well. But just like with Robert Woods, where they're going to need him early and often, it's going to be the same with Marvin Jones with Jameson Williams suspension happening. So like they're going to need him early until Jameson gets back. Now he may trickle off towards the end of the year as Jameson arrives and kind of takes that spot. But like you're saying, like if the Lions put up numbers the way they did last season, which seems like that's their intention. I don't know why it wouldn't be. That'd be weird if they decided, oh, you know what, actually we want to score less points than we did. If they're going to try and come out swinging like that, somebody's got to catch those passes. And you're right. Like, it can't all be Amon Ra. Now, he's probably going to get most of it. And then Jahmyr Gibbs is showing up, and you got Laporta and all these guys that can take away from you. But Marvin Jones, again, there's something to be said for that vet presence that can be there. So I'm with you. It's a fringe one, but like it definitely could happen with the amount of offensive production that the Lions had last season. Like, somebody's got to get that. So
yeah, I think it's between him and Laporta. One of those two is going to be a viable fantasy option for the first half of the season, and then obviously there's going to be a plenty of shake up when the Williams comes back in action. So.
All right. Speaking of rookies from last year, let's get into my final guy. And while the other ones were fringe, I'm going to call it right here. Unless there's an injury, I think Jahan Dotson is guaranteed to be a top 24 wide receiver this year. I just think he looked too good not to. I obviously had a huge love affair with Jahan Dotson coming out of the draft last year. Him and Garrett Wilson were the two guys I liked a lot. And he surprised a lot of people by going in the first round. But then he surprised a lot of people weeks 1 to 4 by being like the most productive rookie wide receiver out of any of them, averaging 13 points a game. That was with a week where he only scored 3, by the way. And by the way, in that game where he only scored 3 points, he had 8 targets. Just couldn't get the ball rolling on it. It's not like they forgot about him all of a sudden. But then he got injured, obviously, and that always sucks. And then when he came back, it took him a few weeks to get going. Weeks 10 to 12, he only had 3 targets with a total of 5 points collectively through those 3 weeks. However, once he got his health back, weeks 15 to 18, he shot all the way back up to 14 points per game through that time period and 6.5 targets per game through that time period. So the Commanders really, really like using this kid. He was highly productive. and he's got an absolute nose for the end zone. 7 of his 35 catches from last season were touchdowns. That's a crazy rate. That's probably unattainable and unlike repeatable, but it shows that he knows how to get the ball, and like even how to get the ball into the end zone, even with that missed time that he had and not leading the team in red zone targets. He was only 22.9% of the targets in the red zone. He crushed everybody in terms of touchdown production. He had 5 touchdowns in the within the 20-yard line or inside the 20. That was more than all the receivers on the Commanders combined. So he lapped them basically in terms of red zone efficiency and production when you talk about touchdowns. And he did this with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke and Sam Howell. And that's obviously the biggest concern for Jahan Dotson still, is that we don't know what the quarterback situation is like. We've got Sam Howell rolling in as the starter this season. Taylor Heineke is his backup. Excuse me, he didn't do it with Heineke. No, he did do it with Heineke last season. Who's the backup in Washington right now? Sam Howell and who is the backup? Jacoby. Fucking Jacoby Brissett. So obviously we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be like. We've got Sam Howell starting, and then Jacoby Brissett as like a break glass in case of emergency, in case Howell doesn't work out. But I think Dotson can be productive with either one of those guys anyway. And then speaking of Howell, like let's take a look at the last time we saw Howell for a full season. His last season in North Carolina, he had a massive connection with Josh Downs, 101 catches, 1,335 yards, and 8 touchdowns between Sam Howell and Josh Downs at North Carolina. Josh Downs is 5'9", 171 pounds, played out of the slot and kind of outside a lot, but like primarily a slot receiver. Jahan Dotson is 5'11", 181 pounds, and plays primarily out of the slot. So projecting who Sam Howell might want to throw to all the time, seems like there's a guy who kind of slides into the very role that the guy he loved throwing to last time is. So there's a chance that Dotson just kind of crushes it. Obviously, Scary Terry's there. He's going to be the number one. That's going to be hard to beat. But they're going to be throwing the ball a decent amount. Like, Ron Rivera needs to kind of start winning to save his job, to be honest with you. He's not a running guy or a passing guy, but they're going to need to. And they clearly already showed that they liked Dotson enough to trust him with a decent amount of work for the entire season. I mean, he was averaging somewhere between or like almost 7 targets a game for the whole season. And that was in his rookie year. They took him in the first round with the 16th pick. I think people are sleeping way too hard on Dotson. Him being at 38th projected, just inside our top 36 limit there is crazy to me. I think he's going to crush that. He's projected 11.1 points per game right now, when last season, when he was healthy, he was averaging 13 and 14 respectively during the 2 periods he was healthy. So I don't see that going down all of a sudden. So I'm all in on Dotson. I'm sending it. I actually just got to decline a trade offer. I sent somebody a 25 first for Dotson, and they said no. But I'm all in. I want to get a hold of Dotson where I can.
Yeah, keep pushing it, dude. You'll get him a 2025 first. That feels pretty close, man. You could throw in a little piece on that and get him. Yeah, incredible, man. A rookie that played 12 games, only had 11 wide receivers, finished with more touchdown receptions than him. So, I mean, you're right. It's serious, it's obvious, and it's pretty special. fuck yeah. All right, I guess I'll get into my last wide receiver. I'm going higher as well. This one is 42. Okay. Number 42 on the projected point totals. And it's Brandin Cooks, man. Ooh. Come on. You knew it was coming, right? New faces and new places. Brandin Cooks, here we go. There's so much to say about Brandin Cooks. Let me just talk about the team that he joined, the Dallas Cowboys. I think that they've got a lot of juice right now. I think that they're going to want to keep the ball rolling. In fact, that high flying offense was third in points last year, and it was pretty interesting. It was an extremely even split as far as like NFL teams go. It was 24 around 28 through the air. Like most teams are not going that close down the middle on their touchdown production. But yeah, so that was second as far as the number of rushing touchdowns in the league and ninth as far as passing. And I know this doesn't have anything to do with Brandon Cooks, but I think that we all know that at the moment Zeke is no longer part of this team. And so with that absence, I'm seeing the opportunity for a huge shift in the red zone utilization and in the game plan for this team. Don't get me wrong, Tony Pollard is awesome. But Dak last year was 16th in red zone pass attempts in the league, and Zeke had 50% of the team's red zone rushing share. So the red zone, the go-to red zone guy is gone. Dak has a great amount of room for improvement. And if you want to sleep on Cooks, that will be your bad, because the guy who had a quarter of the team's red zone targets last year, Dalton Schultz, is no longer with the team. So let's boogie, man. The opportunity is huge. Brandon Cooks isn't necessarily like a touchdown guy historically, but I think when opportunity knocks, it's going to be the door will be wide open for him to get into the end zone. So it does kind of feel like a cheap prediction, considering that 6 out of 9 years he's been in the top 24. so I'd say at this rate he's definitely ripe to finish in there. He's 29 now, and he's on his 5th NFL team, which is
Crazy.
nuts to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing there is that he has never shown any sort of statistical setback when joining a new team. So worrying about like a hangover going into the new team, not going to happen, man. And like I'm saying, Dallas is hungry, man. They want to get it done. And they just added a new OC, man. They got first year OC Brian Schottenheimer. Kellen Moore is now in Los Angeles. Good for him. We'll see. But a few things about Brian Schottenheimer that should get you a little bit excited is his last OC job was in Seattle from 2018 to 2022. And in those 3 seasons, Seattle was in the top 5 in passing touchdowns, and Russell Wilson went 3 for 3 as a Pro Bowler. So it was extremely prolific for the passing game, so much so that Schottenheimer was pretty much let go because he wasn't running the ball enough. So let's go ahead and put him in a situation with CeeDee Lamb and Dak. Dak hasn't hit the Pro Bowl status in 4 years, and I think he's ready to get that accolade back on his profile. So here we go. I think Dallas is ready to rock. I don't think it's that hot of a take. Like I'm saying, he's going 42nd, so it's not that big of a stretch. But he had solid contribution in Houston, even with Davis Mills as his quarterback. The fun thing is that his ADOT and his yards per catch, they really went down considerably with Davis Mills, but that's okay. Historically, he's still at about 13 yards on the ADOT and 14 yards per catch. So I think he's got, all the proven work to jump right on this team and be a 1-2 punch with CeeDee Lamb. I think it's going to be amazing, man. I don't know. Every time I look at Mo Cap's team, I'm like, damn, dude, if he had just kept Bijan and Jalen Waddle, like, this team's pretty stacked with Kadarius and Brandon Cooks and Josh Allen and Freiermuth, and could have kept David
that
Montgomery.
happens, man. You never know. You
I
never
just
know.
want the guy to do well. But now I'm like, now I want to just get Brandon Cooks off him real quick. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I was thinking about doing Gallup for this little exercise, and I couldn't because of Brandon Cooks. I just think he's too big of a threat to take all that work away from Gallup. And obviously, CD is going to be the number one guy there, and then I think Cooks slides immediately into the two, like you're talking about. And I don't know that that offense is going to be good enough to hold three guys in the top 24. So I couldn't, in good conscience, go with Gallup. But
It would
kind
have
of
been
a,
fun.
yeah, it would have been fun. But I'm with you, man. I Cooks, like you're saying, if you sleep on him at your own risk, he just continues to produce no matter what. So I see it happening again. Before we get into our quarterbacks that we wanted to mention, our dart throw quarterbacks, I had some honorable mentions for this wide receiver conversation I wanted to throw out. Mostly just because we talked about them quite a bit recently, but I just wanted to throw them all out again. Deontay Johnson was 40th projected. I've talked this to death. I think the Steelers are going to be way better than Sleeper does, apparently, because Sleeper also only has Pickens 3 spots ahead of him at 37. I think both those guys are going to crush those numbers. Paris Campbell's all the way down at 70, 8 points per game. I mean, there's a chance that Campbell leads the Giants in targets. Like, there's a chance that that happens. And to me, like, there's a chance that he crushes that 70 number as well. And then they also have Flowers, Zay Flowers, OBJ, and Rashad Bateman, all three under that mark. I'd say odds are that Lamar Jackson's number one receiver is probably going to be in the top 24. At least one of them is. So one of those guys is most likely jumping up. My money's on either Flowers or OBJ, but I don't know. I just wanted to throw all those out there because they kind of fit into the conversation, but I had mentioned them fairly recently, so I didn't want to just talk about them again. But all those guys do fit into this conversation.
Damn, I wasn't gonna do an honorable mention, but since you broke the ice, dude, I'm doing it.
Okay.
I got definitely a few names. I think Terrace Marshall Jr. at 96.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like if anything goes on with him and Bryce Young, that could be 100% electric. One that I almost did, but I didn't want to get too deep on it with you was Mecole Hardman at number 80. He does have some flashes and a ton of potential. So if he can get things going with Rodgers, that would be amazing. And then in that same tone, I think Kadarius Toney at 41 is disgustingly offensive. And I almost did Treylon, who's running in at 39th, because if he can deliver on some of the pop games he had last year, just the momentum that he should have as from what we saw in Arkansas, it could be pretty awesome, especially if Will Levis gets any starting time there.
Yeah. No, should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun receiver names like there are every year. It's hard to weed through the weeds through there. But let's get into some quarterback talk. So we're kind of just like last week when we talked about a tight end that people weren't talking about enough. Kind of the same vein, more of a quarterback that we think has potential to be way better than where they're projected. I'm going to bring up a name that I talked about a lot last year and has been talked about a lot this season, off season already. But it just feels like he's still getting slept on potential wise. And it's Desmond Ridder. It's Desmond Ridder. What is the deal? Like, in fairness, I've been trying to trade the guy for a while, but that's more roster construction than anything to do with Ridder. I have Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, and Desmond Ridder. I just don't need all four of those guys. But Sleeper has my man Desmond Ridder projected less points than Jimmy Garoppolo, Sam Howell, CJ Stroud. He's barely above Mac Jones. He's barely above Ryan Tannehill. And he's barely above Trey Lance, who apparently is behind Sam Darnold on the depth chart. So
No.
this makes zero sense to me. Like, okay, with the weapons that Ridder has alone, he should be looked at as a better option than Sam Howell. He's got Bijan Robinson, he's got Drake London and Kyle Pitts, all just absolute monsters that can take all the tension away from him. And he just needs to get them the ball. He just needs to be a distributor. Player Profiler compares Desmond Ridder to Alex Smith, and that's exactly what he needs to be. Just get these guys the ball. Bijan Robinson's going to be used in the passing game all the time, I think, and Ridder is going to benefit from those points. And I just think young quarterbacks get more chances than Ridder's getting all the time. And I don't understand it. Like, in fairness, he did not impress during the games that he played last season. He looked fine at best. He looked lost at worst, but there's no threat to him either on this team in terms of playing time. Like, at no point next year should you not have Desmond Ridder in there, just seeing what he is for the full season, unless he just absolutely flames out, which obviously there's potential for that to happen. Or if Atlanta is like competing for the NFC South at some point and Ridder isn't playing well, which they could be, then you bring in Heineke, whatever. But realistically, you should be riding Ridder out for 17 games this year. Find out what you have in him. See if you need to go back to the draft and get a quarterback next season. On a bad team last season, Desmond Ridder completed 63.5% of his passes, which is all right. But that was with Kyle Pitts out of the lineup. So you don't have one of your main guys that you're going to be throwing the ball to, and you still complete 63% of your passes. If he gets a healthy Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London in there. Now you have Bijan Robinson. You're going to have a running game that should take a lot of the pressure off of you. Everybody's going to be trying to block Robinson. And then London and Pitts should be able to consistently catch for you as long as you get them the ball, which is all Ridder needs to do. Oh, and then the other thing that Ridder can do that people just aren't talking about, he ran a 4.52 at the combine. That's in the 98th percentiles for quarterbacks. He can move, dude. Like, this guy has potential on the ground. He's got a weapon at every level of the offense to hit. All he's got to do is get the ball to these guys, and he could arguably be like we saw Daniel Jones end up as a top 12 quarterback or whatever last year with the season he put out. You're telling me that Desmond Ridder can't do that as well with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts? Hooey on that. Absolutely he can, and people need to be more in on this kid.
Ooh, I like that, man. It heat me up. I'm not trading for him. Just want to clarify.
I got to hold him now out of principle, probably.
Absolutely, until the price is right anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He was a late round guy I picked up in that weird best ball dynasty draft that I did.
Go.
So I'm pretty pumped. I don't know if it'll pan out, but like you're saying, like, that team is completely stacked and ready for him to just do something safe and effective, Daniel Jones style. I think there's no way he's not a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, right? Like,
well,
give me a break, man.
Yeah,
I guess I'm a DJ hater over here.
I mean, I'm not a huge DJ fan, but I mean, he could be that, like, equivalent at least this year and like get you enough points more than Ryan Tannehill, who might be traded halfway through the season and bench for Will Levis. Like,
I keep hearing this Tannehill to Atlanta stuff, and I'm like, why would you waste your money?
Yeah, it's kind of does seem pointless, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll jump in on things that are funny and strange, and going with Baker Mayfield.
Hell yeah.
Give me something. I guess he's 33rd on the projections. So that's fun. He got $8.5 million on a 1-year deal to go to Tampa Bay. And damn, how the mighty have fallen, man. Tom Brady.
Tampa Bay is over.
Yeah, dude. He packed up all the joy and hoofed it right out of town. So I don't think, like, realistically, none of us were thinking Kyle Trask was up to the task on this. And Baker, I mean, obviously he had his own fun times last year, a couple different teams, right? Carolina, and then he rolls in for the last 5 games with the Rams. And I don't know, man. he didn't have great stats. There were no games over 250 passing yards. But he was like every bit of the quintessential like Baker energy, like fearless leader, to whatever pros and cons fearlessness can give you. I think there was some questionable headbutting going on, but this guy, he comes in to a Rams team that is like Tyler Higbee and nothing, right?
Hmm.
Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek, like nothing going on, and he gives them some energy. Thank you, Cam Akers. Definitely had something to do with it. Um, but I'm looking at Baker and I'm like, why the fuck not, man? Like this guy, he could probably get in there and make something happen. And it's been a very long time since he had a supporting cast like what Tampa Bay is just has waiting for him. I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Are you kidding me? Let's go back to the day 2019 when Baker had a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. without his dad's tweets and Jarvis Landry, and he puts both these guys over 1,000 yards. He's shown that he's capable of doing it, and that was in the hot garbage kind of Brown system, back in the Freddie Kitchens days or whatever was going on back then. So I think you put him in Tampa Bay with these pretty amazing weapons, and you take him from like the 25th ranked O line that the Rams had, and put him in a system where you got the 14th going in the season as the 14th best O line. Obviously, you got Wirfs in there, and then they got Munch coming in as a rookie, and like there's a lot of juice around that O line. It's going to be nothing like playing with Cleveland and fucking Nick Chubb, but with that in mind, these guys didn't really do a ton in the running back room. We all like Rashad White, but as far as like him threatening to produce a run first offense, I don't really see it. So like I'm kind of getting shades of like YOLO Winston
Okay.
vibes coming to me from this Tampa Bay offense. They want to definitely do as poorly as possible as far as winning, because they want to be in position to take care of the quarterback position in the 2024 draft. But at the same time, like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are very, very competitive NFL players, and they're not going to lay down and
No.
just let the team suck ass. So, and neither is Baker, man. From what we've seen, like this guy, he is tenacious, man. He's going to be out there doing everything he can to try to get probably a multi-year deal with a semi-competitive team in 2024. Whoever knows what that landscape looks like, but maybe Las Vegas could use a little Baker in 2024, man. That sounds amazing. I doubt it happens, but you know what I'm saying. He's fighting for his career over there, and I think he's going to put up some really incredible numbers with the supporting cast, and people are going to be a little surprised to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great flyer, especially like in super flex leagues. If you don't have like the strongest roster of quarterbacks, you could definitely sling him in, and he had some, like, I guess stat wise not so much with the Rams, but like he had fun games, he led them to the win. Like we've seen him produce, so I'm with you. Like he has a chance to surprise, and like you said, good offensive line and great weapons, so it's not unfeasible that offense actually does kind of work, especially Rashad White with the receiving ability out of the backfield. Like I think there's a chance for sure that Baker kind of has a little bit of traction.
Absolutely. Yep, just give him a shot. But
Well, all right. What are we getting into next week then?
oh, dude, we're going back and forth trying to link themes, and so I think for next week we're going into a similar setup as this week with the running backs,
Okay.
and we're going to look for some potential RB1s that are outside of the top 24 and projected point totals right now. And maybe we'll do an RB1 that we're thinking may not be up to that kind of status. So that's what our plan is, coming back at you with RBs next week. Should be pretty clean, pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. That's going to be fun. We're talking 2 up and 1 down next week in
Hey.
terms of running backs. So yeah, that should be fun. But as of that, we are wrapped up. So thank you guys for joining us. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you guys next week.
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out